What are we chatting about today?
Well, I thought that one of the things that we all struggle with as new homeschoolers, and I think it pops up through our homeschooling journey all the time, is the school mindset. You know, we were raised and taught in a school environment for many years of our lives, and that can be ingrained in us. And if I look at the way moms trip up generally in homes, it's normally to do with not being set free in their minds from that school environment. And I thought that we could chat through some of the issues around it and hopefully encourage parents to kind of step out of that old mold and do something new with their own families. So why don't you jump in with your first thoughts?
Yeah, well, if I think back to how it was when I first began homeschooling, I definitely started with that approach of doing school at home and thinking of learning as isolated subjects with, prescribed levels. And, you're kind of conditioned by your experience that, for example, in grade 3, you're going to learn about the life cycle of the frog, or in grade 4, you're going to learn the anatomy of the bird or the grasshopper, or whatever it was, because that's kind of how it was when you were in school. And so when you start homeschooling, especially if you're doing multi-level schooling and you're teaching different children at different ages, you think you're doing it wrong if they're all learning the same things at the same time, because it's not grade appropriate. But we have to do away with that graded mindset. Knowledge isn't organized in grades. The school system just does that for convenience, because they've got to mass deliver a curriculum to a group of children that are all one age. And that's how they segment it and make it, easy to deliver. But with us, we can just choose a topic we love and we can do a theme on something, or we can combine themes and do unit studies. And we can explain that more just now. Or we can just learn by reading stories about things that are interesting and learn about all different subjects mixed up together. Yeah. And if it's something that you enjoy, it's far more interesting than just isolating topics and keeping two subjects in textbooks.
Absolutely. Charlotte Mason talks about a science of relations. And if we think about just the normal human relationship, it's love that binds us together. I love my children, I love my husband, I love my friends, etc. And it's exactly the same thing with education. It can become a love relationship with knowledge, with learning, etc. And if and the first and the easiest way into that is following our children's interests. So you mentioned a unit study, and the way I've always explained it, and you might want to add into that, is that if you take a topic, for example, spiders, we're now going to look at spiders. We're going to read a story together about spiders, possibly Charlotte's Web. Then we're going to do some arts and crafts around spiders. We might look at South African spiders and do some nature study using a field guide. We might add on to that, other topics that could spin off, which is the lovely thing about unit studies, is you tend to go down these rabbit trails, how to treat poisonous bites. You could then end up going on an outing to a museum where they have displays of spiders. And in that way, you are continually exposing your children to ideas and thoughts around the same theme, but using your writing a creative piece, writing a sort more of a non-fiction piece about spiders. And you could even in this day and age go and film a video of the spiders in your garden and learn how to edit it. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, we've had lovely testimonies of children who've got hooked on a particular subject or something, like they had a love for birds, and they've carried that through all the way through their homeschooling career, and their hobbies become their passion or their field of study. Yeah. So you never know what exposing your children to these different things like this might teach them.
Absolutely.
Another thing that I learned the hard way, and it sounds so silly because it's obvious, but it's that we never stop learning, and all of life is learning. And I think it was in the stages when I had lots of little toddlers and always had a baby and was breastfeeding and often didn't get through what I had planned for my day for formal lessons, that you start to realize, but the kids learned anyway. And you have to start thinking outside the box and say, well, we didn't do so many pages in the maths book or the reading or in the history book, whatever it was that was planned, but the kids baked cookies. And for example, that teaches them things like being able to read a recipe, following instructions, paying attention to detail. Maybe there's some maths in the measurements and some chemistry in the chemical reactions or something. But they learned other skills like how to tidy up and whatever. So when the academic part of your day falls apart, you start to look and you start to see, but there were so many other things that we learned without even needing this school curriculum. And that's quite a mind shift for parents. Not that we can use it to make excuses for not being diligent, but just, life interrupts us. And often our best made plans don't always come about. And we feel guilty because we think we've neglected our children's education. But often they're just learning these other things that aren't necessarily in the books.
Absolutely. And I think that if we look at the home, it's very hard to replicate what school does. School takes kids all of the same age and puts them all into one classroom, up to 35 more kids in different places. And there they have to have a teacher, the blackboard. The teacher is meant to hold all that information that she's imparting to the children. And very few of us have gone and studied maths up to matric and are now qualified to teach maths and that sort of thing. So bringing a school curriculum and a school mindset into the home, the tendency, there are some folks who make it work. Let's be clear. There are some parents and kids who will bring CAPS or a textbook sort of related program in and they enjoy it. But in general, it does not work. And when we look at the home and what the structure of it is, that you've got multi-ages, multi-levels, multi-skills, and a mom who has possibly, like me, I always say, and people always laugh because they don't really believe me, I am fraught with maths. I cannot do maths. It just, something didn't click in my brain. I wasn't wired that way. And instead of feeling like I need to hold all that information like a teacher, I can go and get the right resources for the kids through the homeschooling networks and empower them not to sit with the same feelings that I do about mathematics. But now we've got this multi-skilled, multi-layered, multi-aged environment at home. And we have to look more at what they used to have as a one-room schoolhouse as versus this different segregated ages. How did that work in your home?
Well, definitely it was multi-level and multi-age. But what we did was we kept each child on their sort of age, grade level, because my children were sort of on par with, I think, what average is, what I know of average. And so they would do their maths and their languages, those discipline subjects at that level, and the rest we did together. We read stories and we did unit studies, and they learned things as a group, and that kept my life simple. It helped me to cope. And because as homeschoolers we weren't obsessing about tests and exams, that worked. So we weren't trying to keep up with the school curriculum. And I think the whole point of home education is to give our children a love of learning. As Jeannie Fulbright likes to say, and perhaps it's a good way to end this, if the purpose of teaching is to score well on a test, then we've lost sight of the real reason for learning. And so we have to shed that school mindset that thinks we're just doing grades and tests and moving up, and realize that we've got the world as our classroom and it's different to school.
Absolutely. So if you could leave our listeners with one top tip in terms of how to get yourself free from school thinking and a school mindset, what would that tip be?
Focus on your goal of encouraging your children to love learning for the sake of learning, and not focusing on testing and scores and getting through a curriculum.
Absolutely. And if I could, if I could add, I would say just don't compare. You know, each of our families are unique organisms. Each of our children are unique. And if we compare even within the homeschool environment, even within our children against a child, but most importantly, don't compare to what is going on in school. What you're giving your children is 100% better, personalized attention, a tailor-made education, compared to what a school would. So lovely, nice short one today, and I hope it gives folks something to think about. Have a lovely rest of the day, and we'll chat again.